I want to talk through all the reasons that I don't like software engineering. There's a lot of reasons that I do like this job, and I've talked about it on the channel, but I specifically want to talk about the reasons, why I don't like doing this job at all. And honestly, these reasons are are always kind of on my mind. And it's always like in the back of my head, like, oh, if I could do something else, I wouldn't have to deal with these things. So I'm going to go right into it. The first reason is the isolating feeling of the job. This job can be very isolating. It can make you feel alone. And in part, I think it's a problem with just the nature of the work, right? It's a lot of thinking and a lot of kind of back and forth in your own head about ideas and experimenting with things and reading about new technologies and feeling like you have to internalize a lot of what you learn and remember it. It's a lot of remembering, and that can be kind of draining and make you kind of feel isolated from other people, especially when you're working through a specific task and you may feel like you're kind of stuck on the problem and you may be hesitant to reach out because maybe it's kind of late in the process and you feel like you should be farther along. So that makes you feel like you can't reach out even more. And then it's kind of like this, this like self-repeating cycle where it's like, okay, I'm going to feel alone. That makes me not want to reach out to people. And that's going to make me feel more alone. I've noticed that a lot with this job, and it doesn't seem to get better over time. It just seems like it changes form. And I think that it can really be taxing on people. And it can be really taxing on me. It can honestly be very exhausting. And it can really make me sometimes feel like I'm alone in this job. And it can really make me feel kind of distant from reality in a sense. So I don't like this job for that reason. Another reason that I don't like this job is I never feel like I'm getting ahead of the curve as far as learning technologies because of how rapidly everything changes and how frequently, new frameworks are released, new versions of languages are released, and honestly, just entirely new technologies that come out are released. Like, there's always something new to learn, and that's often like cited as a positive to this job because like, oh, there's always a new problem to solve. That's fine for the beginning, but after a while it becomes very exhausting and it becomes very draining because you always feel like you have to be reading just to stay current and stay relevant. And that to me is very taxing mentally because I always feel like I have to be looking something up, reading up on a technology to get better at, but I always feel like there's something I don't know. And I feel like it's always that one thing I don't know that I end up having to work on. And that just makes it super draining because it's like, oh, why can't I just work on something that I know? Just get through like one like ticket like cleanly and just move on to something else I know. But that's often not what happens. There's a lot that's unknown, and it's about figuring out those unknowns that honestly is what this job is really all about. But honestly, that's increasingly become a stronger reason as to why I don't really like this job. And I don't see that improving because I just see that the speed of change keeps getting faster. Rate of change keeps increasing. So we'll have to see in the future, but that is one reason that I don't like this job. Another reason I don't like this job, and this is going to be more of an obscure reason, is I think it has negatively led me to expect immediate gratification too much in my own life. And what I mean by this is that, we're working on these problems and code that often we can get immediate results from. We can write code, we can debug it, we can step through, we can test, we can get results in a fraction of a second. And whether maybe it's my fault, but I've just noticed that I have come to kind of expect that same level of immediate gratification in other areas in my life. And I kind of feel like I have taken that approach of expecting results, and I've kind of carried that over into problems outside of work. So for example, if I have a problem with something with my house and I have to make a call and I have to wait, I feel like I've become more impatient about receiving a call back about something that I need done quickly, because I've gotten used to getting results very fast. And I feel like I've gotten used to having complete control and ownership of the problems. And so sometimes when there's a problem that is outside of my control and ownership, I become impatient and a little bit irritable at it because I'm not used to that. I've been conditioned to expect immediate gratification because of work. And I feel like that's been a very interesting problem to track in my own life. And it's led me to have to take, I feel like, corrective measures on my part to step away from screens and technology, and honestly just not be connected socially to those things or people, because I have to take a step back and just reflect and think myself and just kind of reground myself in reality away from this digital world of screens. So that's another reason. Another reason I don't like this job is the amount of screen time that you really have. You're on screens for 8 hours a day, and that can be very draining. I feel like it's exciting at first because you're like, oh, I'm sitting at my desk. I can work on my monitors. I can use all my stuff, and it's very fun. But over time, that can become very taxing. Not only to your eyes, but mentally. It can become very mentally exhausting. And I've noticed that I have almost grown accustomed to the amount of screen time that I have because of work. But I've noticed that I almost need a higher amount of screen time to feel like I'm in my normal state of being. And I think it's from work, because I work on a computer. So when I have a day that I'm not on the computer, like the weekend, I just feel like something is missing because I'm used to working on a computer. And I wish it wasn't like that, but I feel like it's gotten more that way, just because of the nature of this job. So we talked about screen time in a previous video, but I feel like that is another reason why I don't like this job. I would say that the final reason I don't like this job is a never ending feeling of imposter syndrome. I feel like regardless of how much I've studied, how much I've read about a technology, how much I've used a specific pattern in code, and how much I've, gone from Dev 1 to senior, I always feel like I have this overarching feeling of complete imposter syndrome. And it's never really gotten away. Again, it's just kind of changed forms. And it's always kind of looming in the back of my head, like, these expectations I feel like I have placed on myself are very high, and sometimes when I don't meet those expectations, or I am not able to solve a problem by myself, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and that whole imposter syndrome kicks back in my head, and I don't feel like I can do this job, and sometimes I feel like I just am not qualified to do it. And those feelings always come back, especially when you work on more difficult problems where you need help and you have to reach out for help because you are stuck. We all get stuck and we all need help. We can't do everything by ourselves. But that feeling of imposter syndrome never goes away. And I feel like it's gotten worse the more I've progressed in my career. And I've heard from people that it never goes away. And just from my experience, I fully believe that. But that also, just like everything else, can be very exhausting and it can be very mentally taxing. So that reason, I don't really like this job. Now, I'm sure that that exists in every job, but I'm just, again, talking specifically in the context of software engineering. So that is another reason I like this job. All those combined, and all that to say is any job you work is going to have its own set of difficulties. And I think it's about deciding which of those difficulties you can live with and still be content in your job and content as a person. And I think software engineering still allows me to be content most of the time, but I think I have to keep kind of a watchful eye on all these reasons why I don't like software engineering and just make sure that it's not impacting me negatively and impacting me in a way where it's diminishing my quality of life. Because I feel like, or I've noticed in the past, if I don't keep kind of a watchful eye as to where I'm at with all these difficulties or even burnout in general, I'm not in a good mental space. I'm not in a good headspace. I'm not thinking clearly. I'm just not 100% content with my, job. And I think it affects my quality of life. So I feel like while any job has its difficulties, I feel like in software development, we need to make sure that we are keeping tabs as to where we are at and making sure that if we do have a running list of reasons why we don't like this job, we need to start addressing them. We need to say, okay, if I don't like it because I'm getting too much screen time, how do I fix that? Do I have to just abandon all screens after work? That we might have to, and that might have to be an option. If you truly don't want any more screen time, that means you got to turn your phone, your laptop, TV, everything off after work and just not use it. And on the weekends, turn it off because it doesn't matter anymore because you're not at work. That can be unbelievably difficult to do because you feel like you need to be always connected because that's what you're used to with work. And that's, again, it's difficult. So, as we think about these, as we navigate reasons that we may not like this job, just be mindful of how are they affecting me and what can we do about it. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.